everybody. My name is Robin Beam. I'm Product Development Director for Spellbinders. And for those that know me, know I am a big Winnie the Pooh fan, especially classic Winnie the Pooh. Tigger is kind of my favorite, but Winnie the Pooh is right behind there. I love the artwork, the books of the drawings of, E.L. Shepard and A.A. Milne, and working with my coworker, Chandra. I had many books that we could look at for reference. So this is a stitched Classic Pooh, and it's S6 263. And this is part of our ever-growing felt series of stitches, of stitched dies. This one's a little different, and we're going to go through that. You'll see that this SKU has this Winnie the Pooh, and the way I'm going to show you, you can make him so his arms and legs can move a little bit. There's a honeypot and a bee, and this is a little project that I made just to show what you can do with him. I'm going to move him aside and show you a little bit. This all started from me being nosy and wanting to play. I took our stitched Winnie the Pooh and I was playing with him one afternoon, and then I kept playing with him. And then next thing you know, we made some alterations and things. And now that's where we have the Winnie the Pooh we have now. The things that we're going to have for this SKU, we have the dies, which I'm going to show you. There's the two bodies. There's the front and the back. If you want to make a double-sided Pooh that has the eyes on both sides, you would cut this twice, but otherwise there's a front and a back. And then we have the arms and the legs. And this is for the nose, and this is for the eye and the ear. But there's also an alternative way that we're going to show this. We have the honeypot base, and then here's the label base with the honey label that goes on top. And then you can't have the honeypot without the topper and some dripping honey. And then last but not least, the bee. It's the bee body, the stripes, and the wings. So this is a really nice set. It's easy to cut through. It's especially easy when you work with our 100% merino wool felt, which we have in 8x12 sheets. And in fact, we have a new assortment of felt based on this SKU. It's the Classic Pooh assortment, and what that involves are some different colors, some new colors, but some are tried and true. As you can see, this is from my set that I have. I've created my swatches, and what's a little bit different about this set is that we wanted you to be able to make multiple Winnie the Poohs. So what we did is we added 2 sheets of some of the colors. There's the 2 sheets of the beeswax, which is what you see with Winnie the Pooh, and the black for the eyes and the ears and the nose. There's 2 sheets of the caramel, which is what's used for the honeypot. And then we also have the sunflower, which is another color that can be used if you wanted to make a little bit of a darker Winnie the Pooh. We also have this new color, which is honey, and that is a nice bright color that you can use for the honey, and which is here. Cornflower, which we have that you can use for the top or you can use just for the label. Coal, which is the black, and a new color, which is cream, which is what was used as the base underneath this label. So there's 1 of each of these sheets, but there's 2 of each of these colors. So this is a fun set. Chandra was great. She worked with our team and figured out that you can make from 1 sheet, you can make 3 Winnie the Poohs. And in regards to the honeypot, it's like 9. So there's a lot that you can do. So if you wanted to make a banner such as this, all with the same colors, you could do that. You know, I'm all about all the different little I love garlands, and so this is a nice set. So this is the 100% merino wool felt. So for purposes of making the Classic Pooh, some of the things that you're going to need are needles. You can use existing needles that you have that are blunt, but I've been using some that are sharper because these dies do not have holes. You're going to be freehand sewing these. Another thing is sharp scissors. These are, they're called Kai scissors, K-A-I, but we also have very detailed scissors that can work as well. We also have some glues. There is, you can use Barely Art glue. And another glue that we have found, this you can get from Ranger. This is Dina Wigley's Media Glue. And the only thing to be aware of with this is that if you're in very cold areas, you want to get that before it gets too cold, because this can freeze if it stays out for too long. But this has turned out to be a very nice glue if you want to tack down some glues. Also, we have DMC. We found that there is some DMC colors that work really well that match the felt. All right, where'd it go? I'll do that part again. And use something fell. We also have DMC floss, and what I have done is I have matched the threads to some of the main colors for this. So it's $7.44 for the beeswax to match the beeswax felt, $4.34 to match the caramel, and $8.13 for the cornflower. And you see, it may not look like it matches like exact, but when you use one thread and you sew things up, you'll find it just totally almost melts in and creates a real beautiful look with these. All right, so these are our key ingredients. Oh, one last thing is quilt batting, and this you can easily get. And this die cuts. You'll see what I do is when I cut this, I cut 2 pieces at a time. It flattens things out a little more, but what it does is it just gives enough, a little bit of extra support. So like here's what 2 sheets look like die cut. So see how nice that die cuts? So that's the other thing. All right, so what we're going to do is, I'm not going to show actually die cutting because most people know how to do that. So we're just going to get started. I've got my craft stacks where I've got some things all organized. So what I have here, and I'll talk about the eyes and the ears in a second here. You're going to do a front and a back, and you're going to then you're going to have to cut out the arms 4 times, because you're going to be sewing these together, and then you're going to have to do the legs 4 times, because you're going to sew those together to get your 2 arms, 2 legs. And then I have his nose too, but we'll worry about that later. All right. Then you're also going to cut out, so again, as I had said before, you can run this die through. So for this, you'll just do the solid die, because you don't need the eyes, because this is going to go in the middle. So you're going to do 2 sheets together. So you're going to cut this out once for the body, and then you're going to do the same thing. So two sets of arms, 2 sets of legs. All right. So this is what you're going to do to start out to cut him. And the nice thing is you can cut this all first, get everything ready, and then you're going to be, going to be good to go. So the next thing you're going to do, let me just go to my next step here. So one of the things that we found with Winnie the Pooh, when you're using this light color, and you can see this with this guy, if you make the circle, if you cut out the circle for the eye and the ear, you'll get a little bit of a shadow. So an alternative to this is you go back in with some very small pieces of black felt, and you'll just put them over these areas and run it through. And then what you'll do is you just pick them out. And I know they're here because I cut them. So in here, there is, it looks pretty fuzzy, but here's an eye. And here's the ear. So what you're going to then do is you just inlay that, which I did here, the eye and the ear here. But you don't want it to fall out. So what you do is you turn it over and you take some of your scraps of your felt that you have left over. And they can be small pieces because you don't want to make it too bulky. And you'll just glue down these little pieces. You know, I should make this smaller, but you get the idea. And see what I did here? So gluing the eye on the back and the ear on the back in place, what it does is it keeps it where it needs to be. But see how it looks just seamless? So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do when you're using a light color such as this. Let's see how that just goes right in. And what you're going to do then is, if you're going to do a darker color, that will work. Here's another example. Chandra actually did this one, and it's in even lighter color, and you can really see the halo. It looks like he has a poor little guy. Looks like he's got a black eye. So that's why if you do the inlay technique as opposed to gluing it from behind, you're going to have a nicer look. So when we're getting ready to sew these, what you're going to also do is you're going to take all of these batting pieces that you have and you're going to trim them down because you're going to sandwich this in between. So what I did is I just trimmed it down enough so that when you overlay this, see that there's a border? So you're going to have room to sew around so that when you start sewing this, so it'll just give enough, just a little bit of extra cushion. And then we're actually going to add in some polyfill too. So what you're going to do is you're going to trim these down. And the same thing for the arms. You have to futz with it a little bit, but it makes it worthwhile. And see, here's the legs. He looks like he has these little skinny legs now. But again, when you line it up, so see, you just play with it. These are probably two different ones, but see, there's room around that you can sew. So again, you die cut the felt, die cut the batting, the quilt batting, trim the batting, get his eye and ear in place, and now we're going to start sewing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start first with his arms and legs. They're the easy ones, and it's a good way to show how to sew these. So for people that have not done a lot of sewing, believe me, I have not done a lot of sewing. I've done a lot of embroidery over the years. And so this was a little bit of a learning curve for me, but I love it. I have so much fun with it, and you don't have to worry about being perfect. And this is a very good starter project if you've not done a lot of sewing. So what I'm going to do first is just get this all set up. We're going to do his arm. So for purposes of showing how to do the arms and the legs and how to do the whip stitch, I'm going to show with a darker thread. As you can see, this thread matches so beautifully with this that if I start using it, you won't see what I'm doing. So for purposes of this, I'm going to use, this was just the 434 thread from DMC. So what I found that I like to do to put the knot in place is, because this is like a 1 millimeter thick felt, I just like to run my needle lightly through some of the felt. You can see it doesn't come through the back, but it's just enough so that when I run it through, see how the knot is held? So that's just my way. I mean, there are probably a bunch of different ways how to do things. I'm showing you the way that I figured it out. So, so now I'm going to place what I've cut down from the original size. You know, I cut from here to there so it fits. And then I'm just going to lay this down. I don't pin. This is small enough that I don't need to pin it down, because sometimes that can distort. But what I have here is I'm going to start doing the first stitch. Now when I do my first stitch, it's maybe about a 1/16 of an inch in, maybe an 1/8 of an inch. You don't want to go too close to the edge because you can rip the felt. Even though this is just really, really high quality felt, the thing is that you could rip it if you go too close to the edge. So I'm going through both edges, and if it goes through, I try not to go through the batting, but if every once in a while it does, it's not the end of the world. And then I'm going to run that first stitch. So one thing with the whip stitch is that what I've learned is, see, sometimes I'll tack this in, is if you take the next stitch and you go on an angle, the stitch that you've made here is going to be straighter. See how that nicely sits on here? So what I'm going to do is, see, every once in a while maybe I'll just squish that in. And you don't want to also you don't want to pull too hard, because what'll happen is you'll start to cinch up the felt, and you may you may just, you know, it'll look puckered and everything. So for purposes of this, I'm probably not doing the straightest or best spaced stitches, but in a way that's okay, because it's Winnie the Pooh and he's classic and he's a little threadbare little guy. But for purposes of showing this, one of the things, sometimes what people do is they will actually put like little tick marks on their thumb or their hands to show where the next stitch should go. The other thing you can do is, I find the more I work in one sitting on stitching, the more even my stitches become. If I stop and start, I will find that I kind of lose my rhythm. But you can see how I'm just going through here. Again, I'm kind of rushing going through, and I just have to rework making sure that this stays in here, the batting. And you're just going to go all the way around. All right. So for purposes of the video, I don't necessarily want to have everybody watch me do this one piece, but let me see if I can get it done and then give you some other tips and techniques real quick. One of the things that we are working on is, I spent a weekend, not a weekend, but I spent some time going through, I'll admit it, I probably have almost all the colors of DMC now. And so what I did was I went and matched all of our felt, and we have, you know, with the Classic Pooh, we now have that, and we have some other new collections. We have Fall, and we have Kaleidoscope, which has a little bit of a bright Halloween theme. So what I did is I went through and I matched the DMC floss to our felt. So we're working on getting that list together for everybody. And we're also looking to update our swatch sheet to show all the different colors that we now offer. And as you can see, I'm just trying to move along here. Again, it may not be the neatest in the world because I'm rushing along, but I just want to show, I mean, this can go pretty quickly. This is why, like, sometimes I'll just start with the arms and legs just to, you know, because you have to do, you know, 2 arms, 2 legs. You just got to get it done. But you see, whoops. One other tip, you don't want, you'll find out what the right length of, the correct length of floss is for you. But the longer the floss that you're working with, the higher percentage of getting knots. Trust me. And if you're already doing some embroidery or sewing, you know this, that it's the law of, yeah, I'm going to mess with you for a while and make you have to stop to get the knot out. So as you see, so you can see my stitches are okay. They're not too bad considering I'm rushing through. But what I want to do is I want to show you my little funky way of finishing. Again, it may not be the most correct way, but it's the way that I do it. Because I hate knots and I hate having to hide the knots. So what I'm going to do, I'm almost to the end here. Just running this through. And you can also see by having a sharper needle how you're able to go through this thread like this. I mean, go through the felts as this. So now I'm at this last stitch here, which, see, back here it's kind of hidden. So what I'll do is I'll kind of run it to where this thread was here. And then this is what I do. I go through his arm a couple times. And what that's doing is it's kind of catching in the quilt batting. And I find that I've not had any of my threads go anywhere. So that's what I'll do. And then take my scissors and so here's my little arm. Again, not the best. You can tell when you go here I was much more even with everything. So what you're going to do is you're going to do your arms and legs like that. All right. So then the great thing is that you then just have to do his body and then you know this part's done. So you're closer to getting it put together. And so what you'll do is you'll start the Pooh body the same way. And I have one that's already started. So what I'll do is all right. So for Winnie the Pooh, when you're going to sew him up, what I found is I start him right about here. And I go around the way I've done. I put his nose on because I kept losing it. So I don't glue the nose on until I'm basically done. So you just go around the way I've been, and you can see where now you kind of have a pocket here. You see here? So this is where I will come in and I will start to stuff his head. So you'll stitch it just the way you did the arm, just the way I just discussed. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take some polyfill. Now, one thing that we've learned, and this is a discussion that Chandra and I have had, that, you know, you live and learn, is you don't want to overstuff it. And at the same point, you don't want to understuff it either. There's one that I did that I thought I had here. I may have left it back, where he's kind of flat. And here, this is the one. This is one that I have. It's kind of flat, whereas this one, see, has a little more. It just, you can see the thickness. It just then allows the label to give it some dimension, whereas this one's kind of flat. So, you know, you live and learn. You constantly live and learn. So when you're working with the polyfill, it's a good thing, break it up. And then when you're putting, you know, it in, you do little bits at a time. You can always, it's always easier to add more in instead of having to try to pull it out. And then you want, because we're going to be closing this up and adding in the arms and legs. And the arms and legs is the trickiest part. You want to start to get some of the stuffing. And I'm just using the back of this. These are my tweezers. And again, what you can do is you can kind of guide it to go toward the nose. So see how that just filled in a little more? But if you overstuff it, it's going to distort it. And it's also going to start pulling on your stitches and it won't look as nice. So see how that, just doing that little bit, look at the difference in regards to how he's already getting some nice shape and there's some life to him here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in just a little bit more toward the front of his body, because what we're going to do is we're going to get to the little bit of the trickier part, which is adding his arms and legs. So, and I may want to add, yeah, that should be good. So see how there's like, if you can play with it a little more. You can also use, there's a, yeah, see, I just added, see how I moved something down there? It just filled that in a little more. You can use it to, you can use like a chopstick. You can use some other tools and stuff. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to start adding the arms and the legs. So this is my piece that I have to finish his body. I'm just going to kind of move that needle right up here for now. So what we're going to be doing is, this is the trickiest part, and this is the part that I want to make sure that I can get this explained as well as possible. Because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding on the arms and legs like from the inside of his body. And so in order to do that, we need to, let me grab this. You need to do a little bit of having 3 hands at one time. But I've done enough of these now that it's doable. I mean, if you want to, you can always just sew them on, glue them on the outside, but it just isn't as nice, and then you can't get it so that his arms and legs can move. So this is like me just quick doing a knot. You know, I wrap it around a few different times. All right. So I have found when I'm working on adding his limbs, I usually do the legs first, because there's like 2 different places for those. So see how I have his legs here. It's probably not anatomically correct, but you can see this one's here, but this one's over here. Whereas for the arms, if you look at his arms, those are pretty much, they're pretty even, and I sew those on at the same time. But the legs I have in 2 different spots just so I can get that effect of how he's walking. All right. So what we're going to do is, you know, and you can have a reference, and this is where the packaging is nice to have, because the packaging will have a photo. But what we'll do is we'll start with the back one first, and that one's a little more forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my hand. Let's see. Let me create the pocket here. I'm going to at least start the needle and then figure out where his leg is, and that's pretty good. All right. So then you're going to want to try to center. Just think if it's like a toy. And in fact, a good reference is, you'll see here, see these ones. The other thing you can do is we have these little mini buttons. And so it's almost like a joint that you have, you know, you see on a toy or a stuffed animal. So it's like centered on the top of the joint where that is. So what we're going to do is we're going to run the needle up. All right. And then I'm going to go, and this is where you need to kind of have the 3 hands. So you're going to get this in place, and then just kind of next to where you have the stitch, you're going to run it down through. This is pulling a little bit, but it's not a problem because you're just going to stitch that. That's why I like having this pocket where it is, because that's where, so see, you're starting to get the placement for that. So then once you do the next few stitches, it shouldn't take long. Like I go maybe 3 times. And then I go back down. Again, I don't want to keep going back like in the same spot, because what can happen is the felt could start to rip, and you don't want that to happen. All right, taking some of the polyfill out, that's all right. All right, so just come back in one more time. If you have to go more, you go more. If you have to, if you feel that you've gone less, again, if you want to do a double strand, you can. I've just done everything in the single strand. It'll make it a little bulkier where the joint is, which is okay. There's no absolute rules. So see how he's on there? Okay. So then I can flip it as I strangle him with the thread. All right, I'll just put this to the side, sorry. And then I'm going to do the front leg. And that is right here. So see, I'll set that up, and I try to make it so that if he's walking, his legs are somewhat even. All right. And I'm going to take that same thread that I was working with, and I'm going to go back up the center and just going to go back up and down a couple times to make the joint. And this is another reason why it's nice to have the sharp needle. To keep him in place. So see already how he's ready to go. All right. Okay. Maybe I'll do one more, make it a little bit of a bigger stitch. So again, this is the trickiest part of it, but it's not that hard to do. You just, and once you've done one, you can do as many as I've done now so far, with plans of making many more. All right. Oh, here, let me. So see how his legs are pretty much in place. So now I'm going to go to the arms. So as I had indicated, the arms, you can kind of go back and forth in one spot with these. So see how you kind of have it set up like that? So even though I can just go, even this thread, since it's inside of here, I don't have to worry about it as I unthread it. I know I'm probably making it more complicated having this one thread going, but I don't want to stop and start and have a different thread all the time. So what I'm going to do is take that interior piece of thread, I'm going to throw it on the needle again. All right, here we go. So I'm going to start with the back arm, and I'm just going to go to the top here. I'll open up the pocket again and get rid of that needle and see right to the center. have the thread, and then I get his other arm going. And sorry. This is the part that I've been fretting about, because sometimes it's easier just to just do it instead of explaining it, but we're gonna, but I think this will show you what to do. So now what I'm doing is I'm threading it down, but I'm going right straight through to the other side. So see where the arm is? So I can rework that. So here it's easier to go back and forth for the arms. See, I'll go back down again and go back up. Again, trying to make a different spot so I'm not always going into the same place. As I indicated, the arm goes a little easier because you're in the same, you're going across. So again, you're going to go 3 or 4 times through. See how we have his arms, and now we have his legs, oh, his legs, and now we have his arms. So they're pretty much, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this through here. And I'm just going to run this back out through his arm right here. I know that seems weird, but it will basically, it's almost like you're creating the knots without having to do a knot and then having to figure out where the knot has to go. Running it through, and it's invisible. It gets hidden through the seams of the sewing that you're doing. All right, so now we have his arms and legs. All right, we now have to finish him up, but we want to plump him up a little more. So this is where you go back in with the rest of the fill, and you can maneuver it around a little bit to get into those areas that you didn't get before because you were putting in the arms and legs. And you just want to, you don't want to make him look like he does in some of the photos where he's just had all his honey. You don't want him to be bursting at the seams, but you want to just give him enough structure. Because see what happens? See this thread here, I just realized, like on this part of his tummy, I think I missed a thread, which I can go back and fix. But if I keep pushing at that, see what happens? It's going to overstuff him. Whereas if I pull it back, see how much better he looks? All right. So we'll just add in a touch more. And then I'm going to thread this needle back again. And we're going to finish the seam. So you can press it down and you're going to just continue. So you can come back in here, and if you need to tighten up anything, you can. If you're going to pull on a thread, I do it from the back of the needle, so I'm not catching the sharp tip of the needle. Sometimes if I need to pull out a thread and to restitch, I will use where the eye of the needle is, because it's blunt, to pull it out. Because sometimes if you do this part, you're going to catch stuff and you don't want to rip the felt. So you're going to come through again like we've been, and you're going to remember at the angle. See, we go too fast. And we're going to continue to sew him up. If you feel that you need to add a little more stuffing right near the end, you can still add in more if you needed to. And you're just going to finish him up. And then you're going to do what I did before, is just finish it, I run the threads through back and forth a few times. And here you got a cha-cha line going of Winnie the Pooh's. So again, as I had indicated before, you are going to die cut your felt and your batting. You're going to sew up the arms and legs. You're going to then sew his body. You're going to start to stuff him. Then you'll add the legs, then the arms, continue stuffing him, and then finish him up to the end. And as I said, once you get him going, it's very easy to do. And see how you can see even a little manipulating of the polyfill and stuff. You can go back in. It's very, the term is forgiving. It's a very forgiving little soft toy that you can make. So this is Pooh. So then what we have is the honeypot. But before the honeypot, I want to show you something else as another little project and another little tip. Chandra made these out of the fun foam, and look how cute those are. And you can do these out of paper. You can do these out of paper as well. And so this is not just for sewing. There's a lot of other things that you can do. But see how cute he is? And another little tip, and I'm going to show you this in a second, is what happens sometimes with overstuffing, and as I'm going to show you with not always with not gluing down. Sometimes you will pull certain things, but this is why we do all the mistakes, so that you can know the right way to do things. So I'm going to take the honey pot, and again, what we're going to do here is we're going to die cut this, 2 of these, the lid 2, and there's the 1 die for the base, and that was out of cream, and then 1 out of the corn flour. And then you can do, see, this is the honey color, but this is the beeswax color. So you can do the honey whatever color you want. And in fact, because we have a nice assortment of yellow felts, you can alternate and do different colors. And then you're going to do you're going to die cut the 2 layers of the quilt batting for the top and for the body, which I am going to then trim down, and I'll show you that. Now you're going to see a lot of times when you are die cutting with paper and you have something that has letters, it falls out. Well, it's not going to do that with felt. So you can just make out that this says honey. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn it over and then take some tweezers, and you're just going to start grabbing and pulling out. See, sometimes it doesn't want to be nice. Pull out the pieces. If you can get it in one shot, see how clean that is? It's really clean. So what you're going to do is just get this all pulled out so that you have this. Sometimes you need to have better lighting. This is really good lighting here, but I'm still, there's your U. Now start the other end. So, and it's better to do it from the back, because then the fibers will move to the back and not to the front. So then it will be less, it won't be fuzzy on the front. So here is the other end, and then the Y. So some detailed tweezers. So see, you have that, and see how nice and clean that is when you turn it over. So you want to do that. And then what we have here, you'll see how you trim this down. Just like we did with Pooh, this is what you do. If this has to be made a little smaller, you can do that. It's just to give that little bit of extra texture and dimension. So, yeah, just trim this down just enough so you can see the sides to sew on and everything. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to follow the same instructions of sewing around like I have done. I did for the Winnie the Pooh, so that you end up with, do this like this. You'll see this is sewn around, and you'll see this one is, and like you did before I closed this down, you're going to do the same thing. And before you get to the end, you're going to add some stuffing. Now I can look at this, and this might be too overfilled. So I'll just pull out some of the polyfill. Some of it will kind of settle over time, but see, just taking out that little bit, it flattened it out a little more. See, when you do that. But, and if you don't want any fill in at all, you don't have to, you know, it's whatever you want to do. Now, the other thing that you can do is, and this is something that I should have made one, but I didn't, but you can just use one side of these. You don't have to make this as something that is stuffed. And you can applicate it to something else. Like you can applicate it to fabric, another felt sheet if you want to make a little pennant or something, or a banner. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. So what we did is we created the, we cut this and then trimmed and then sewed these together. All right. So now for the label, what I want to show is I showed you how you pull out the insides. So what you're going to do is you are going to, instead of just putting these together and sewing it, which is what can cause some of this pulling, we're going to add some glue. So I'm going to try some of the Dina Wakley Media Glue. And what I'm going to do is almost like in dots. And I'm not going to go all the way to the edge. I'm just going to kind of go around. And this is just enough to tack it down. So I'm going to around the letters, because I don't want these cuts in the felt that form the word honey. I don't want that to distort or pull, or at least not pull too much. All right, so I just have enough of that glue, and again, this is what this glue is, and I'm just going to flip it around and align it with the cream piece. All right, and let that dry. So what's going to happen is this will stay down much more nicely, but you'll still have, and see like this, see there's just enough around the edges for me to sew through without having to fight it, but it gives it some structure. And so what you're going to do, like we've done with the others, this is going to get glued down. So I can just go to the back of this and again, run it through with my knot. And I'm just going to do the whip stitch around this, just as I've been doing with the others. And it's funny, you see how with one thread, one strand, how the thread is almost invisible. That's how nicely it matches up with this. All right. So you're just going to go all the way around. And because I have not had the glue around the edges, it's going right through this very easily. But because this is glued down, it's not going to be messed up. So what's going to happen is you're now going to have this finished piece that's sewn around. So there's a couple ways you can do this. And there's another way too. It's funny, you know, over time, there's different ways you do some things. One of the ways I have done it is, at one point, I was actually taking the top and I was sandwiching it in and then sewing through here. So it's in between. But then what I started to do is I was attaching it to the back with some glue, and then I just tacked it down, which is another way to do this. So what I did is I took some glue to the bottom part. I went a little heavier. All right. And I tacked it down here. All right, and let it dry. And then I just come back here and just run a thin, just a little, couple stitches just to tack this down. And then what I'm going to do is take my honey. I think I'll go with the bright honey. This is the new color yellow that we have. It's a really pretty yellow. And I'm going to tack this down. Sometimes if I think I have too much glue, and I do this even with paper, I'll take this and on scrap paper, I'll just tap it off to the side to get some excess glue off. But for today, and the other fun thing is you can have this, you see on this one, I have the drips on the right side. On this one, I have it on the left, and it's sized so that it goes right along the top of the honey pot. It's been sized to that. All right. So the other thing that we learned is that once you have this sewn, we just glue this down. We're just going to glue this on. It's just makes it easier. If you want to sew it on, you can. But, you know, we sewed the labels together to give that stitched effect. So for this, we're just going to align it along the sides and let that dry. And here's some other colors. And then here's one I did previously where I did the blue top. So see, you can do that too. Another thing that you can do again is this would make for an adorable garland or for decoration. And like we had done for this one, we added some felt beads, or you can line them up and do something else with it. So that's what leaves us with our bee. And the bee is easy as pie. That's the easiest piece. So what you have here is you have the wings, the body, and the stripes. So you're going to take some glue and you're going to glue on the body. And then what you do is don't put glue on the whole wing. Just, I'll lift this up a little bit. You just do like, you see? Just like the center piece, you're then going to put him here. Again, if you want, you can tack this on by sewing it, and you can sew this on. Like you can even sew this on with a button. You can sew this on with a little bead. You can even do sequin or something like that. But for this, it's really easy to just glue it together. And then if you want, you can tack it to, you know, Pooh, if you wanted to. If you want to put one in his hand, you can tack it or glue it on. You can take and you can glue it onto the honey pot. There's a lot of different things that you can do with this. So I know that this was kind of a quick overview in regards to the sewing, but it's kind of cool to see how we went from this to this, and how you can take something that you love, which is what I love, and you know, the fact that we've brought in a lot of the classic Pooh, and how we want to continue with paper crafting as well as needle crafting, how we want to continue to grow and share our love of different things with all of you. So this is how you do the Stitch Classic Pooh, or this is my way of doing it. And I welcome other ideas or ways that people have for stitching, and we'd love to see what projects that everybody makes with this little guy. Have a great day.